October 3rd, 1967. The jungles of Quảng Trị province. The air hung thick with moisture, so dense it felt like breathing through wet cloth. Morning mist clung to the elephant grass and triple canopy jungle, obscuring everything beyond 30 meters. Lance Corporal David Mitchell crouched behind a fallen teak tree, his uniform already soaked through with sweat despite the early hour. Around him, 1st Platoon, Bravo Company, had gone silent. Not the comfortable silence of men at rest, but the taut, wire-tight quiet of Marines who knew they were being watched.
Somewhere in the green darkness ahead, death was taking aim. The crack came without warning, a single rifle shot that echoed through the canopy like thunder in a cathedral. Private James Rodriguez dropped without a sound, a neat hole punched through his helmet. Before the platoon could react, a second shot rang out, then a third. The Marines dove for cover, returning fire blindly into the jungle wall, their M40 rifles chattering on full automatic, shredding vegetation, but hitting nothing. The Viet Cong sniper had already vanished, melting back into the jungle like smoke. This was not a war as the Marines had trained for. This was murder from the shadows, delivered by an enemy they could not see, could not fix, could not fight. And it was happening every single day.
In the early years of the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army possessed a weapon more terrifying than any artillery barrage or battalion assault. Their sharpshooters. These were not traditional snipers in the Western sense. Many were farmers, woodsmen, and hunters who had grown up in these jungles. They knew every sight line, every shadow, every sound. They moved through terrain that swallowed American patrols whole, using trails invisible to foreign eyes. Their weapons were often simple but effective. Soviet Mosin Nagant rifles, bolt-action relics from World War II, fitted with 3.5x PU scoops. Chinese Type 53 carbines, even captured French MAS-36 rifles. These weapons lacked the refinement of modern military hardware, but in the hands of a patient, disciplined shooter who understood the jungle, they became instruments of psychological warfare. The tactics were devastatingly simple. A lone shooter would position himself in a spider hole, a tree platform, or behind carefully prepared camouflage. He would wait for hours, sometimes days, watching American patrols pass. Then, when the moment was perfect, he would fire a single shot. The target was often an officer, a radio man, or a corpsman, someone whose loss would cripple the unit's cohesion. Then the shooter would disappear, using pre-planned escape routes through tunnels or along paths covered by concealed fighting positions.
The Americans called them murder squads. The Viet Cong called them sparrows. Small, swift, lethal. By 1966, Marine casualties to sniper fire had become a crisis. Entire companies were pinned down by single shooters. Patrols moved in constant terror, knowing that any moment could bring that distinctive crack of a rifle and the sight of another man falling. Morale suffered. Units became hesitant, bunching together for psychological comfort, which only made them better targets. The Marines tried to fight back. They used M40 rifles with match-grade ammunition and commercial hunting scopes hastily mounted by unit armorers. But the M40, designed as a battle rifle, was too heavy and unwieldy for precision work in thick jungle. The scopes fogged in the humidity, the mounts loosened from recoil, and the rifle's full automatic capability tempted shooters to spray bullets rather than place them with surgical precision. The Viet Cong snipers, it seemed, had found a fatal weakness in American doctrine. They had turned the jungle itself into a weapon, and they were winning. Then, the Marines made a decision that would change the nature of jungle warfare forever. In 1966, the U.S. Marine Corps initiated an emergency program to develop a purpose-built sniper rifle. The goal was clear: create a weapon system that could reach out across the jungle clearings, rice paddies, and hillsides of Vietnam and eliminate enemy sharpshooters before they could strike. The platform they chose was the Remington Model 700, a civilian hunting rifle renowned for its accuracy and reliability. Military armorers stripped it down and rebuilt it to exacting specifications. The result was designated the M40. Every component was chosen for a single purpose: precision. The rifle retained the Model 700's bolt-action design, eliminating the mechanical complexity and inherent vibration of semi-automatic systems. The heavy barrel, measuring 24 inches, provided the rigidity needed for consistent accuracy. The wooden stock, cut from American walnut, was hand-fitted and stabilized to resist warping in tropical humidity. The M40 chambered the 7.62 by 51 mm cartridge, firing 173-grain match-grade ammunition. This round gave Marine snipers an effective range exceeding 800 yards, more than double the typical engagement distance in Vietnam. Mounted atop the rifle was the Redfield AccuRange 3 to 9x variable scope, a piece of glass that could cut through jungle haze and bring a target into crisp, killing focus. But the rifle was only half the equation. The Marine Corps also established formal sniper schools, drawing on lessons learned by legendary shooters already operating in-country. Men like Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock, who had proven that a trained American marksman could not only match but surpass the Viet Cong's jungle hunters. These schools taught more than marksmanship. They taught fieldcraft, how to read terrain, wind, and vegetation. They taught patience, how to remain motionless for hours in a hide position while insects crawled across your face. They taught to think like the enemy, to anticipate his movements, to understand the rhythm of the jungle. By late 1967, M40-equipped Marine Scout sniper teams began deploying across I-Corps Tactical Zone. The hunters were about to become the hunted. November 12, 1967. Hill 881 South, Khe Sanh. Corporal Thomas Brennan pressed his eye to the Redfield scope, his breathing slow and controlled. 600 yards downrange, through a gap in the jungle canopy, he could see movement near a bombed-out village. His spotter, Lance Corporal Williams, lay beside him in the hide position they had occupied since before dawn, whispering range and wind corrections. Two figures, left side of the tree line. Looks like one's carrying a long rifle. Brennan adjusted his scope's parallax, bringing the distant shapes into perfect clarity. There, a Viet Cong sniper, moving with the cautious confidence of a man who believed himself unseen. The shooter carried what appeared to be a Mosin Nagant, and he was positioning himself in a crater that overlooked the Marine firebase below. The same position from which 3 Marines had been shot over the past week. Brennan made his calculations. Range, 647 yards. Wind, 5 miles per hour, left to right. Elevation, slight uphill angle. He adjusted the scope's turrets with practiced precision, then settled the crosshairs on the target's center mass. He controlled his breathing. In, out, in, out. In the natural pause between breaths, his finger took up the trigger's slack. The M40 barked once. 6/10 of a second later, 647 yards downrange, the Viet Cong sniper collapsed. His companion froze for one fatal moment of confusion before Brennan's second shot dropped him as well.
The fire base below erupted in cheers, but up in the hide position, Brennan and Williams simply gathered their equipment and prepared to exfiltrate. This was their fourth confirmed kill in 6 days. The word was spreading through the Viet Cong ranks. The Americans had learned to shoot back. Throughout 1968 and 1969, Marine Scout sniper teams carved a legend across the Vietnamese highlands and deltas. Armed with the M40, they transformed from targets into apex predators. The rifle's precision allowed them to engage enemy sharpshooters at distances the Viet Cong could not match. Its reliability meant it functioned flawlessly even after days in the jungle humidity. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Viet Cong snipers, who had once operated with near impunity, now faced an enemy who could see them first and shoot straighter. Their advantage in jungle craft was neutralized by American optics and ballistics. Spider holes and tree platforms that had seemed invulnerable became death traps. The tactics evolved into a deadly chess match. Marine snipers studied enemy patterns, learning to predict where Viet Cong sharpshooters would position themselves. They set ambushes, using themselves as bait to draw out enemy shooters, then eliminating them with single, precise shots. They learned to read the jungle the way their enemies did, understanding that certain terrain features naturally channeled movement, that certain trees offered the only viable shooting positions in a given area.
One Marine sniper team in Quang Nam Province recorded 103 confirmed kills in 7 months, the majority against enemy snipers and reconnaissance teams. Another team operating near the DMZ became known as the Ghosts, after they eliminated an entire Viet Cong sniper section that had terrorized a Marine battalion for weeks. The man who would become the Vietnam War's most successful Marine sniper, Sergeant Chuck Mawhinney, used the M40 to record 103 confirmed kills and over 200 probable kills. His longest confirmed shot, a Viet Cong guerrilla eliminated at 1,043 yards, stood as a Marine Corps record for decades. But the true measure of the M40's success was not in numbers. It was in the change it brought to the battlefield. American patrols could move with greater confidence, knowing their own sharpshooters were watching over them. Officers and radio men no longer presented such inviting targets. The constant grinding terror of invisible death from the jungle began to shift onto enemy shoulders.
The Viet Cong snipers, who had once laughed at American marksmanship, learned to fear the flat crack of a distant rifle and the knowledge that they had been seen. In a war with few clear victories, the M40 delivered something rare and precious, the restoration of balance. April 1970, An Hoa Basin. The war was winding down. American forces were beginning their long withdrawal, but in the jungle, the sniper war continued with undiminished intensity. Lance Corporal Robert Hayes, barely 20 years old, lay in a hasty hide position overlooking a trail junction. His M40 was trained on a cluster of hooches where intelligence indicated an enemy sniper team had established a base. He had been waiting for 3 hours. His muscles ached. Mosquitoes formed clouds around his face. The heat was stupefying, but his focus never wavered from the scope's field of view.
Then, movement. A figure emerged from one of the hooches, carrying a rifle. Through his scope, Hayes could see it clearly. A Mosin Nagant with a scope. The man moved to a concealed position overlooking the nearby Marine firebase. Hayes made his adjustments. Range, 423 yards. Wind, negligible. Target, stationary. The M40 fired. The enemy sniper never knew what killed him. One moment he was scanning for targets, the next, he was gone. Hayes extracted from his position and reported the kill to his commanding officer. It was his 14th confirmed elimination. He would never know the names of the men he had killed, would never know their stories or what had brought them to this jungle war. But he knew this: they would kill no more Marines. The M40 rifle served with distinction throughout the Vietnam War and beyond. It underwent continuous refinement, evolving through the M40A1, A3, and A5 variants, each incorporating lessons learned in combat. But the essential design, a Remington's bolt-action platform chambered in 7.62 by 51 mm NATO, remained constant. The rifle became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of the Marine Scout sniper tradition, a tradition forged in the crucible of Vietnam. Every Marine sniper who followed walked in the footsteps of men like Hathcock, Mawhinney, and thousands of others who had faced an enemy in his own element and prevailed through skill, patience, and precision. The Viet Cong snipers had been formidable opponents, brave, skilled, and intimately familiar with their terrain. They had inflicted grievous losses and tested American resolve. But when the Marines brought the M40 to the jungle, the balance shifted. The rifle did not win the Vietnam War. No weapon could have done that. But it gave American marksmen the tool they needed to fight back, to protect their brothers, and to prove that in the deadly game of long-range precision, skill and technology could overcome even the most cunning adversary. In the end, the laughter stopped, the jungle grew quiet, and the crack of the M40 echoed as both warning and epitaph. In this war of shadows, the Marines had learned to shoot first, shoot straight, and shoot to kill. The hunter had become the hunted, the balance had been restored, and the legend of the Marine sniper was born.